Hey Eurovision fans, it's Tom coming to you from Dublin. I'm back for another Eurovision reaction video. Today I'm reacting to the results of Eurosong, that's Ireland's national final. So let's kiki. So I will break this up into chapters and I will leave timestamps in the time bar in case you want to skip to me talking about a particular thing. Disclaimer, this is going to be a little bit of a rant cake, but with some delicious constructive criticism icing on top to help balance out the bitterness of the ranty cake. So just be aware of that going in. I'm going to justify everything I say though, and again, I'm not going to be all doom and gloom. I'm going to try and give some constructive criticisms, plus some positives I think to take away from the night, etc. Okay, so first of all, the show, I've spoken about this multiple times about how I don't like that it's on the Late Late Show, which is a general entertainment talk show hosted by Ryan Tubridy, who had this absolutely ridiculous quote saying that he thinks that we can win Eurovision this year before the show came. Yeah, look, I don't blame him. He didn't sign up for this. In case you don't know, the reason that the Irish national final is on the Late Late Show is a financial thing. RTE basically don't want to pay for a national final because it would cost somewhere in the range of a couple €100,000, which makes sense. That's quite a lot of money. RTE right now are losing money, they're in a deficit, so they don't want to spend several $100,000 on a national final. So what Michael Keeley, who's the Irish delegation, have done is that he's organised for it to be on the Late Late Show. Given his circumstances, it's not the only option available to him, but I do see why he's decided that it is a studio which already has everything set up. He doesn't have to pay for the stage, he doesn't have to pay for the cameramen, he doesn't have to pay for all the makeup artists and all the places for everyone to go and sit and get ready and etc, all those kind of expenditures which amass. But yeah, like, Ryan Tubridy is not a Eurovision specialist at all. This is why I wish he'd shut up about Eurovision. I know he has to give some quotes to promote the show, but like, for example, I know nothing about cars. If you asked me to host a car show, I would say, okay, that sounds like fun, I'll do it. But then I wouldn't start going, oh, I think this should be car of the year or that should be car of the year, because I don't know anything about cars. So I would just shut up and read the script. And I wish that he would stick to that a little bit more, because really he has absolutely no idea what he's talking about. If you asked him to name any other national finals, he would be able. He doesn't know any of the other songs. He shows interest in Eurovision for this night and probably the final as well. So that's frustrating when you've got someone who's hosting and putting out these comments into the ether saying, I think we can win this year. I know it seems like quite a small and substantial thing, but it's this perpetual mentality that we need to get over in Ireland, that we can send something really like mediocre and bland that we don't even like that much, and that should be enough to win. This is the biggest hurdle I think that we have to finally getting over and actually doing well at Eurovision. I'll talk about it later, but I'm going to discuss the chart placings of the Irish songs. Spoiler alert, we don't even like our own songs. They very, very rarely chart well. So yeah, it's frustrating when you've got someone like that saying you think we can win when we haven't qualified in 3 years. The show in general, look, the production wasn't great. I'm active on Eurovision Twitter. I presume most of people watching this aren't, so I will explain. The show really got absolutely railed on Twitter. In terms of production quality compared to other national finals, it is probably last or near last. Just in terms of the size of the studio and the quality of the camera cuts and everything like that, the main mood on Twitter is like, why is this look so cheap? On the plus side, all the Eurovision fans on Twitter now know about our giant peanut butter. I didn't realize that this was not a thing in other places, but yeah, we do have giant peanut butter in Ireland, and it's really convenient. I have lots of tubs of it because I put it in my smoothie every morning. I never really even thought of it as something unusual, but apparently, yeah, giant peanut butter is unique to us. I think it's in the UK as well. The other thing about being on Late Late Show is that they insist on a panel. So Michael Keeley said he didn't want it, and I think everyone agrees that the panel is just completely and utterly pointless. They just say that everyone's brilliant, and they're all. One of them said that Layla Jane was compared her to Sia. This is the girl who came last in the jury, in both juries and the televote. And I have to admit, I'm a massive fan of Jedward. I thought they were the only ones who were bringing a little bit of realness, giving some actual constructive criticism. I'm a massive fan of Jedward in general, and actually, funny enough, again, spoiler for the chart thing I'm talking about later, but they were #1 in 2011 with Lipstick, and they were #5 in the Irish charts in 2012 with Waterline. So they are people with actual pedigree in making music that even Irish people like, not just Eurovision people, but Irish people like it as well. Okay, so the winners of the show were Wild Youth. Now, they're kind of like an up-and-coming band. I think they're quite experienced. They've travelled and toured a lot. Look, let's start with the positives. I thought that they were very professional on stage. They looked like people who had experience. We saw a lot with a lot of the performances last night that there was like some missed notes and just awkwardness and just look like a real lack of experience, lack of confidence, not knowing what to do or move your body or how to hit camera angles, etc. These guys just look great. They had a style to them. I don't think their style was like particularly amazing, but they had a clear concept. The mannerisms were great, the vocals were great. They just looked like a cohesive, professional, seasoned band. And that is definitely the biggest plus point for them. Absolutely will give that to them 100%. The song is incredibly difficult to argue that it's not hyper bland. It is a very bland, generic song. It feels very formulaic, Eurovision by numbers, like how the UK used to sit down and write songs for Eurovision. This is that perpetuated. It's a checklist of things that Eurovision Europeans like. There's another thing we need to stop, is this thing that like Europeans are this bunch of Neanderthalic 6-year-olds who need like baby food songs because they're not able to comprehend music or anything like that. It's weird, the language behind it, that a song for Eurovision, what does it mean? This is 160 million people around Europe. This is just the population of Europe. Who do you think you're talking about? These are just normal Europeans who are like us, who like mainstream music and like popular music and like good music. So why do we need to make special songs for these idiots? It's really strange, and this is another mentality that we need to get out of. So in the summer, I actually did a reaction video to Wild Youth entering the competition, and I said I was looking forward to it because I like that kind of indie sound. For some reason, they totally gave that up and just decided to write a Eurovision song. They went to Stockholm to write with this guy, Jörgen Olofsson. So Jörgen Olofsson also wrote Dying to Try, which was Ireland's internal selection in 2017. He's also a very successful songwriter in the noughties. So he wrote Sometimes by Britney Spears, You Drive Me Crazy. He wrote some songs for Westlife as well, including the #1 song, Fool Again. So like I'm not saying he's a bad songwriter, but he very much has had his success in the early noughties. He also wrote Stronger by Kelly Clarkson, but again, all these songs are like 20 plus years ago. Yet the song for me is just very bland, very generic. This is not just me as well. This is the overwhelming feedback that I'm seeing on Twitter while the performance was going on, but also afterwards as well. And that's not to say that people don't like it. I'm not saying that there's like, everyone's like, we hate it. It's like, it's a fine song, but it's super bland and generic, and it sounds kind of like I saw one person saying it's like an AI generated a Eurovision song. Lyrically as well, I like what it's singing about. I like this unity thing, especially with what's going on in Europe right now. But I do feel like Ireland and the UK, because English is our first language, we should be like exceptional with our lyric writing. Like we should have very, very interesting non-cliche things, and there are a bit too many cliches and tropes with this lyrically. I think it could and should be a lot stronger to feel like it was less, again, formulaic Eurovision song. I think they could have taken a bit more risk in that point. If you're going to go for a very standard construction of an anthemic clap your hands thing, well then be a little bit riskier with the lyrics, put in something different, unique, put in a real soundbite that grabs people's attention. There's absolutely none of that with this whatsoever lyrically. So if they do a revamp, which I'm absolutely and utterly praying to every single Eurovision god that they do, I definitely want a lyrical revamp as well to just jazz us up, add more edge and spikes into it. You know, not spikes as in like toxic thing, but just something a little bit edgier, a bit more like dramatic, or making a point, or kind of poetic, making some sort of statement, using the fact that this is his first language. The song really reminds me of 2016 Nicky Byrne's Sunlight, which we know didn't qualify. So it feels like there's been no progression, because we're sending a song that sounds like 2016, written by the guy who wrote the 2017 song, which also didn't qualify. So it feels like it's stuck in 7 years ago, and probably even farther back than that, because it's written by someone who wrote songs in the noughties. So it's just got this like, not ancient, but just dated feel to it. So look, how do I think it'll do? I think it's got a shot. First of all, the semi-final only has 15 people in it. So usually around 57% of songs qualify from a semi, but this year it's going to be 66%. So already you've got 9% more chance, which is great. What would be considered has more of the big hitters, but then we've also got Latvia and Croatia, who have currently 2 of the worst qualification streaks with us. And then we've also got Malta, who do not have a good reputation either. So, you know, there already is 3 potential people who could be under us. We just need to find 2 more, and we're into 10th place. Having said that, I would prefer to be like talking about us like competing to win a semi-final, rather than trying to like scrape in because other people are doing badly. And realistically, if you come 10th in the semi, you're looking at pretty much near last place in the final anyway. I think that this could hit a nerve in a way. It is anthemic togetherness song. It feels quite calculated in that way. And again, if I think it had more like lyrical strength, it would feel less calculated, but it could work. I'm not just looking at this year, I'm looking at overall progress, and this doesn't feel like a progression for me past last year or previous years. It feels like maybe just plateauing or maybe a slight dip down. So moving on, I know a lot of people are going to start blaming Michael Keeley, who's the Irish head of delegation. I've eased off on him a little bit. I listened to his he did an interview with Eurovision, which is a podcast. He explained things quite well. I think my takeaway at the end of listening to that podcast is really the main issue is RTE don't want to give them the money. And secondly, I just don't think good enough songs are being submitted. Now, he didn't say that in so many words, but I think once everything's been explained why he can't do ABC, you go like, okay, well then why are the songs not there that he's getting? And he's just not getting good songs. And I think we really need to look deep at like, do we really have the songwriting ability that we think? You look at Finland right now, they've got 7 songs of all different genres. They've got so much talent in songwriting and performances. Like all those songs are great and they're different. Czechia right now has My Sister's Crown and a couple of other really nice songs as well. Isti Lao. They've got so much variety and great songwriting. These are all places with kind of similar populations. So it's actually Estonia's population is almost a third of Ireland's. Norway is very similar population to us, and they've got a huge variety and quantity of good songwriting. At what point do we actually say maybe we just don't have the songwriting ability and pedigree that we think we do? And maybe that's the big issue, is like, how do we work on that we're promoting young songwriters or giving them help to develop? I definitely think Michael Keeley needs to give up on these conspiracy theory things, saying, oh, it's all because of voting patterns that we're not getting in. Nah, the songs are good enough. This is where I'm going to talk about the charts now. Fun trivia for you if you're sitting at home. When was the last time that an Irish song made it into the top 10 of the Irish charts? And if you said 2012 Waterline, which I told you earlier on in the video, so I kind of spoiled my own little trivia quiz, you would be correct. That was number 5 in 2012. In fairness to Ryan Dolan, he was 13 in the Irish charts with Only Love Survives in 2013. He qualified and came last to the final. But since then, yeah, no one's been really close apart from Together, which was 17th. And even surprisingly for me, That's Rich was 57th in the charts. I was very surprised about that, because actually all this talk about us being robbed was like, well, the song didn't even break the top 50 in the Irish charts. How can that be robbery when Irish people don't like the song, but then Europeans are meant to like it and vote it into the top? I think this just shows this like very low standard that Irish people still have for the competition. They think that something that is outside the top 50 of the Irish charts should still be able to qualify into the final of Eurovision. There's no other Eurovision country who thinks like that. Like everyone else, Finland, Estonia, all their songs are going to go number 1. Sweden's song will go to number 1. Like, this is normal in other national finals that their song will win. It'll almost always go to number 1. We aren't, because the songs are good enough. There's not enough interest. There's not enough effort put in. Let's talk about the other artists who win the final. So Connolly, who came second, I thought she was absolutely fantastic. Look, she's a really young girl. I keep hearing she's 18 or 19, I'm not sure. Let's say she's 18 and a half. My friend works as a journalist. She told me that Connolly told her this is her first ever gig. So that is incredibly impressive, to go straight on to a live show in front of several 100,000 people in Ireland and around Europe. I was hoping that she would scrape through, because I feel like that extra time she had over the next couple of months would help her develop, and then she would have many, many more gigs and she'd get better and better and better. I think she performed the song amazingly for someone doing a first gig, but like if we just look at it as someone not knowing anything about her, it wasn't perfect. I definitely feel like she got better and better as it went on, and she got more confident, a little bit too timid at the start, but then she kind of got lost in a little bit more. Some of her bandmates I felt were good. I think that was a clever thing to do. It felt like they were supporting her. There was a little bit of a team going on. I hope she continues writing. She wrote the song herself, completely on her own. She didn't go to Sweden to get any help. I hope that we can nurse her and help her to grow and develop in a similar way to like Elsie Bay from Norway, for example, and then hopefully she can come back in the future. We've got future potential with Sophie Lennon, who came 4th in Junior Eurovision. So we have got some like young stars who are on the periphery who hopefully can grow. Okay, ADGY was my favorite going into the competition. I think a really nice guy. I like that he added in the 20 seconds of Irish at the end. It just didn't work for me. He kind of kept flitting between low energy and high energy. The low energy thing is where you kind of let everyone work around you and you kind of just like smooth and dancing and kind of like don't give a fuck, which I think works for the song, because he's like, I'm too good for your love. But then he would do that, but then he would go into some dance moves and it just kind of looked a bit kind of like robotic and a bit cheesy. So it felt like he didn't find the balance between the two. It felt like he should have done one or the other. Yeah, and I just think he was a slight victim of the fact the stage is small and that he couldn't do much with the LEDs. He was definitely missing his camera cues. He was not looking at the right camera. A lot of the time he was looking like down here instead of making eye contact. So he wasn't hitting the cameras. I'm not sure if that was a nervousness thing or if he was just missing where the red light was to look in the right place. But yeah, it kind of just broke the immersiveness of it. I have to admit, I did have my head in my hands for some bits because I just didn't feel like it was going the way that I had kind of dreamt about. I probably had like envisioned how it could have gone. But yeah, I wanted more like a light show in the back. Not necessarily exactly like Czechia last year, but in that vein of like excitement. I still love the radio edit of this, and I'm going to be listening to it. I think it's number 3 in my personal charts right now, so love that I still have that. I get a lot of controversy over Public Image Limited, which is Johnny Rotten's group with the song Hawaii. I know he was causing a lot of controversy because he said Eurovision was crap or shit or whatever. I think he kind of apologized and said, look, he was under a lot of stress. Apparently during the press interviews, he kept on breaking down in tears because he said of the stress of singing this song. So look, I'm giving him a pass if he says sorry. I don't think it's surprising that someone like that is going to say something that's kind of anarchaic. That's kind of his brand. I don't know if he says Eurovision shit. It doesn't really bother me that much. And then he kind of took it back. So I think the song concept is really nice. Alzheimer's is something that's really awful. Just the song is too flat, and just as a performer, his voice isn't very good. The meaning behind it's really cool, and I like the vibe of it, the like Hawaii feel, but the actual performance was just, yeah, it just wasn't good. And I think because he had kind of pissed some of the Eurovision fans off from saying it was shit on Twitter, they were absolutely railing into him. But yeah, I think this is fine. It ended up coming 4th. He definitely, I can see why Michael Keeley put him in. He brought a ton of attention onto the competition. They say there's no such thing as bad press. I don't know. If it brings more attention to the competition, maybe that's what they need to get more money and more finances. I think he was just playing the game. K Mooney and ND, I saw quite a few people supporting this on Twitter saying they thought it was a bit something that was a little bit different. I agree, it is different. I think any country that sends hip hop or rap is going to definitely stand out at Eurovision, but the song just needs to be better. Simple as that. Love the idea, but the song just isn't strong enough to float at Eurovision. So again, another pair that I would love to see come back with something better, like much better, much more stronger melody. Their staging though was really cool. A lot of people really liked it. Good staging content, and they performed very well. And then last was Layla Jane with Wild. This was bottom of both juries and the televote. Look, she's a nice girl. She mentioned at one point that she was a busker on Grafton Street, which is the main shopping street in Dublin, and it just kind of looked a little bit like that. She's clearly not a dancer. I don't know why the producers don't step in at a point like this and say, look, maybe you're better off not dancing, let the dancers do the work, you maybe just do something else. She just wasn't a dancer. You could see that thing that when somebody's not very experienced in dancing, they're kind of like waiting for the start of their dance, and then they'll go boom, and then they'll go, and it just looks very incredibly unsmooth. She was just a little bit out of her depth. Vocally, it was okay. I don't know if she did herself complete and utter justice. Performance-wise, I don't know if she's there, but she's written a good song, so again, maybe she could come back as a songwriter for a future edition. Okay, look, overall, I'm kind of disappointed. I'm not saying that we're not going to qualify. I still think it's possible, but I think circumstances have to line up. I really hope there is a revamp and that it's lyrical and melody as well. My issue is just this doesn't feel like progress to me. I feel like when we saw the lineup for the show and when I did my initial reaction to the songs, that felt like progress, but actually seeing the show itself and how many of the performers seemed very inexperienced, and how, like, in the end, Wild Youth won the televote. I saw that Lewis Capaldi tweeted in favor of them, so that's a huge thing because people from the UK were able to vote as well. And then also there was no cap on voting, so you could vote as many times as you want, which I think is just a common sense thing. You have to have a cap on like 10 or 5 or something. One girl voted 167 times. You know, that potentially cancels out around 100 people. So this one person gets to cancel out 100 people. I know you could argue that's what the jury's is, but the televote is meant to not be that. It's meant to be like an equality thing where everyone's equal and gets to have an equal say in what they like, not one person being 100 times more powerful than everyone else. So I think that's like a common sense thing. Having said that, they probably just wanted the money. The texts were like whatever 50, 60 cent each, so they got a good €70 out of this girl. All right, that is the end of my rant cake. Hopefully you thought something and it was tasty, or food for thought. Oh, that was terrible. I actually didn't pre-plan that. But yeah, look, I'm trying to be constructive. I'm also trying to be realistic as well. It's not like we're doing great in the competition. We're currently last in the rankings for the last 10 years out of 45 countries. We're 45th out of 45. So yeah, I think it's appropriate that the video has a tone of slight, what the fuck is going on? What the hell do we need to do? If you can't do a video like that when you're 45th out of 45th, then when can you do it? Okay, anyway, let me know what you think about Eurosong. Do you like peanut butter? Do you like giant tubs of peanut butter? I'm not sponsored, by the way, but if they want to sponsor me, I will totally accept that, because I already buy those giant tubs of peanut butter, so they're just saving me money. Leave a comment in the comment section down below. Don't forget to give me a like, and thanks so much for watching. I'm seeing another reaction video very soon. Goodbye.